Hello, folks, and welcome to Club Passim. Tonight, Club Passim is hosted in Alston, in my room, with my co-host over here, my little cat. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I am thrilled to be able to host this show for you tonight. It is our Songs of Women's History show, which sounds like a very big topic to tackle, and we've chosen just a few original songs to give you just a taste of some of the stories that are out there and why they're important to the songwriters and why they might be important to you as well. So before we get on to the music tonight, I want to tell you just a little bit about Club Passim. If you're not familiar with us, we are a non-profit organization. We run a club in a tiny little basement in Harvard Square in normal times. But since we shut down last March, it has been over a year. It's been a year and a couple of weeks since we have shut down all in-person shows. We've been bringing you all of our regular programming online. So in addition to these streaming shows like this and nights, we also have a School of Music. All the classes and workshops have moved online. We've started a virtual open mic series every week on Tuesday at 7. You can sign up and play at our open mic, and you don't have to find parking in Harvard Square to do it. So now's the time. Now's the time to sign up. Hi, Rich. Good to see you and Sue tuning in. You folks are always great supporters, and so thanks for showing up tonight. What else do we do at Passim? We have two different grant parts of Passim. There's the annual Iguana Music Fund, and that gives small grants to New England-based musicians to continue very cool projects, and actually you're going to hear from one Iguana recipient tonight, Emma Ayres. The other grant program that we started last March is the Passim Emergency Artist Relief Fund, or the PAIR Fund. We recently reopened that for donations, and all donations that come in through the PAIR Fund are given directly to Passim artists to help with living expenses. So whereas the Iguana Fund is helping with new artistic projects, some equipment, touring fees, things like that, the PAIR Fund is to help artists keep living during these difficult times. This really is the way that artists are making a living, that venues are staying open, and that we're still able to connect with you. That's why even a year into this and looking into the future, we're going to keep doing streaming shows like this, bringing them to you online. So if you'd like to help support Passim and the artists tonight, you can go to passim.org/stream. And in addition to seeing all of the upcoming shows we have for the next month or so, you can also make a donation. We suggest a $15 donation for tonight's show, but anything that you give is helpful. It helps Passim stay open, it helps us employ more artists, and it helps artists make art and bring it back to you. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Please do donate if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. We want you here and listening to these stories because we think the stories that we're bringing you tonight are important and need to be heard by more folks. So we have 4 different artists tonight that are that have written original songs about particular women in history and their stories from their perspectives. Up in a bit, we're going to have Kimaya Diggs, Emma Ayres, and Annie Bartholomew. But kicking us off tonight is Rachel Sumner. She put together a fantastic video of her new song Radium Girls. Afterwards, she's going to come on and talk a bit more about the story and give some more perspective to it. But right now, I just want to play this very cool video for you featuring several different Rachels and 2 special Katie Martucci's. Here is Radium Girls.
In the days when Rosie beckoned girls to join assembly lines, a mixture simply named Undark made wristwatch faces shine, and women with star-spangled hearts sat faithfully in rows, bent to help the boys entrenched stave off those dark shadows. Day by day they all were tasked to paint 200 dials with brushes made of camel hair and radiant dust and vials. The numbers on the clocks were painted dainty, slim and slight, so the girls were taught taught to use their lips to point the bristles tight. The taste was a little foul, but no one really seemed to mind. The pay was more than 3 times what a girl back then could find. Radium was championed, a newfound fount of youth, and the few who knew the dangers kept the public from the truth. For a time each painter prospered, though the work they did was tough, and were delighted when they'd clock out covered in the magic stuff. They'd decorate their drabbish dresses, paint skins so they'd sparkle. No earthly sight quite like a glowing angel in the darkness. Curialism. Even lights that shine the brightest will eventually dim, but you never do expect it, just as someone's life begins. As each timepiece passed through nimble fingers, painters dreamed and planned, though they had in fact so very little time left on their hands. Soon these young girls ached as if they'd aged for 80 years, and radiating pain turned into radiating fear. Doctors did their best to treat an unknown malady, but no remedy could keep those bodies from unraveling. So aching turned to limping, and sore mouths began to bleed. Then jaws began to break, and smiles gave way to crumbling teeth. Families became buried beneath doctor bills and loans, and grief like radium began to settle in their bones. Curialism. To have so many sick at once seemed no coincidence, but the company confronted had maintained its innocence. Yet they had secretly received results that told a different story, and they knew despite their lies that they were liable for the suffering. Those who had enlisted ladies to leave luminous and marks were now working overtime to keep them in the dark. Not a single protocol was changed at all, though there was danger, and alien workers failing fast were easily exchanged for healthy younger women, unsuspecting and naive, who craved to carve their own piece of the great American dream. Nothing pierced those stone hearts fortified by corporate greed, even when the women's own hearts one by one had ceased to beat. Curialism. I wish that I could tell you that somebody'd found a cure, or that when the court case first came round, the crime was answered for. These women walked among the living, having one foot in the grave. Still they used what fight that they had left so others could be saved. To this day no one can say how many lives were lost had they been sooner taken seriously it might have cut the cost. You may claim women have been long since elevated in this world, but how can that be? Our ashes still speak louder than our words.
And now I want to invite on Rachel Sumner to talk a bit more about this song. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, Abby. How's it going?
Good. Well, before we start talking about this song and these stories, I just want to mention to folks that you helped me put this show together. It was, and actually, we kind of came up with the idea because of this video that you wanted to put together. So thank you for helping, and thanks for being a part of it too.
Thanks for putting this on and leading the way, Abby. This is amazing.
Yeah, of course. So you turned me on to the story of the Radium Girls, and I have since started working my way through a very fat book about it. Yes, highly recommended reading for everyone out there. And there's also a Netflix movie that it tells parts of the story. It's a good thing to watch to get a sense of some of it, but I highly recommend this book. Rachel, can you tell me what spoke to you about these girls' stories, and maybe highlight some of the personal stories that they tell in the book?
Yeah, certainly. The book is amazing, everyone. It's by Kate Moore. I highly recommend it. She does a great job at illustrating personal stories of individuals. She has pictures in there. Some of them are kind of hard to look at. It's in 3 parts, and the first 2 parts are definitely difficult to get through, but the third part is not a happy ending necessarily, but it definitely, there's a little more justice in there that some of them get to see in their lifetime. But I didn't know about this story for a very long time. It wasn't until about 2019 that I had even heard whispers of the Radium Girls, and the story just floored me because I was shocked that why didn't I learn this in school? There are so many things that being an adult now, I'm like, why didn't I learn this in school? And this was definitely one of them. The story is just, these women were they were considered expendable, and the way that so many people worked against them to try to hide their stories and their truth, it really spoke to me because
the time frame is like early 1900s, like World War One.
Yes, yeah. So think a little background on that. In World War One, men in the trenches, they needed to check time because certain plans of attack were happening at certain times, and they would have to strike a match to check and see what time it was on their watch, and that would give their position away. So they thought, oh, well, radium is a brand new product. Let's try and paint the dial faces with radium so it glows. And so it was a fix. It was like a quick fix, and they hired women to paint the faces of these watches because they had smaller hands and could make the lines quite fine and all that. And they had floors, warehouses filled with young women who they paid really well for this, and it was a really profitable company. And then after the war, it became kind of like a fad. And people just wanted radium everything. It was like such a popular thing. Nobody knew that it was poisonous. And mercury poisoning.
They were selling radium infused water as a cure. Yes! They were in the movie it shows the girls painting their fingernails, so it's ooh, glow in the dark nails. They really were putting it in all of these snazzy new products, but the public didn't know anything about the dangers.
Exactly, yeah. And come to find out, a lot of the higher ups did know about the dangers. And so these women had no protection, no lead anything. There was nothing putting anything between them and the radium. In fact, they were putting it in their mouths to make the point really fine so that they could do better work. And they were encouraged to do that by the companies. But the companies did protect the scientists. The scientists had suits that they would wear, so they clearly knew that there was a danger, and they didn't do anything to protect these women. And it was just, there was a resonance in that story that I feel like we feel today. Times it's gotten, we're like 100 years away from this moment in history, but a lot of the same things are happening again. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew their story, that I could introduce people to the Radium Girls. And it makes me so happy to hear you say that I was the one that told you about them and that you read the book. So yeah, that's what drew me to the story. And
yeah, it's that line, our ashes speak louder than our words. I feel like that can be applied to so many other people's positions in history. And so I think that's a particular strong takeaway from the song.
Yeah, and in this story, it wasn't until one of them died and they were able to literally take her ashes and find some way to measure radium from it, because there was no way to really measure radium at that point. So they had to figure out a process with her literal ashes. So it just, that struck me as especially poignant, and I feel like it definitely applies to women today, and a lot of other people too.
Yeah, so I highly recommend that folks watch the movie if you have Netflix, but absolutely pick up this book by Kate Moore. There's a ton of information, and as Rachel said, like, it doesn't have a happy ending, but it has some justice, and it also does a really great job of showing that these girls were just girls. Like, they were just, they were older teens, younger 20s, but when single women before they got married, who just had a great job and got to work with some other friends in a factory and had no idea that it was killing them.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words, Rachel?
Just thank you so much for doing this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Emma and Kimaya and Annie. I'm so excited about this show. Thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah, of course. And if you want to check out Rachel's music, you can go to rachelsumnermusic.com. I don't know if it's just my own search history or if you've moved to the top of the Google searches, but when I Google Rachel Sumner, I now get you instead of the other Rachel Sumner that does music.
Yes.
So,
that is great to hear.
That's pretty exciting. But folks, check this out. And Rachel has some other great music videos up there as well that you can see. And also another big thank you to Katie Martucci for guesting on those harmony vocals. Fantastic.
Oh, I love her so much. Happy belated Katie. It was her birthday yesterday. So.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Katie. And happy Women's History Month. I didn't say that at the top. Happy Women's History Month to everyone. Awesome. I'm going to move on. Thank you so much for sharing and for helping this show come together.
Thanks, Abby.
Whew, we started out dark. But we're gonna move on to happier things. Again, thanks folks for tuning in tonight. I hope that you enjoyed our first offering. We've got 3 other acts that are coming up in a bit. We are going to have Emma Ayres and Annie Bartholomew. But up next, we have a video from Kimaya Diggs. And afterwards, we'll also speak to Kimaya a bit about her experiences. Moving from the far history and sort of a relating of someone else's story, Kimaya is going to be telling us a bit about an ancestor of hers and some more personal migration stories. So here's Kimaya Diggs.
Hi, I'm Kimaya Diggs. Thank you so much for having me for this show tonight. I'm really excited to be here, and happy spring to everyone who's watching. Flower season is just around the corner, and I cannot wait. So this year I've spent a lot of time delving into some personal and creative projects, and one of those projects involved learning a little bit more about the ways that my ancestors, the people who came before me, ended up here in the US and mostly on the East Coast. These people came here in a huge number of different ways through marriage, economic opportunity, the transatlantic slave trade, and so much more. But one thing that binds a lot of these ancestors of mine together is the same as what I'm sure lots of you watching at home also have in your family history, which is that in my family tree, I have many women who were named Mary. And although these women came from disparate backgrounds and many of them never knew each other, it did tie their stories together in a certain way in my mind. And it made me wonder what those journeys might have been like for them as young women, as matriarchs, as travelers, as explorers, as workers. And I wanted to write this song in acknowledgement of those different journeys. Mary, keeping time against the wall, scratching lines into the trim with the end of a rusty nail. I lost it all, as in everyone. I don't feel alright. I can't recall, am I anyone? Please remind me of that night. That night. I think of you, but I've been working late. I'll write you once I'm out of state, alone on some 6-lane highway. Oh, I've lost it all, as in everyone. I don't feel alright. I can't recall, am I anyone? Please remind me of that night. That night. Mary's face is on the shelf in a silver frame that equals all her wealth. She bought a ticket to somewhere cold, and as I'm told, she settled on the shore. How could I want more? I lost it all, as in everyone. Please leave on the light. Did you think you could ever run when you remind me of that night? That night. That night. That night, oh. Thank you.
That was Kimaya Diggs with, I believe, a brand new song, and I'm going to invite her on to talk a bit about it. Hey, Kimaya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is a brand new song for you, right?
It is. That was the world premiere.
World premiere. I should have put like sparkly lights around it. Amazing. So you said you've been kind of learning more about your family and your ancestors this past year. Has it been like digging through genealogy records? Has it been talking to other people in your family? How have you been going about that?
Mostly talking to people in my family. My maternal grandmother is like a super serious amateur, family tree collecting person. So
Yeah.
she has a lot of genealogy information, but her memory is not all there right now anymore. And so it's mostly been calling the elders of my family, talking about the things that they remember. Because I really believe a lot that if like we can know everyone's name who came before us, but if we don't know who they were, what they did, what they gave up, what they gained, we can't get that depth. So it's really important for me to gather a lot of stories, even if I couldn't necessarily place where somebody might have landed in the family tree.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And have you found some like accidental parallels to your own life when you've been finding out about people?
I wouldn't say really.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Western Mass and I like moved away for 6 years and then came back. So I haven't had a grand life migration. But I did notice the name Mary popping up over and over because that's actually one of my middle names. And when my parents named me and my sisters with a lot of consideration. One side of my family is Black, one side of my family is Indian, and they wanted to name us names that reflected all of our backgrounds. So we have an Anglo-Saxon name, we have an Indian name, and we have an African name. And so one of my names is Mary, and I've always asked my parents, where did it come from? And they always both just say, like, everywhere. And either side you look at, no matter how far you go back, you'll find a Mary. And so I just noticed the name popping up, and then just decided to dive into that.
That's awesome. So the song we heard, was that about a particular Mary, or was it kind of weaving together these different Marys that might have similar stories?
Yeah, it was more weaving together, and a couple, a couple of the stories are things that I know happened. And then other things are me sort of imagining what it would have been like for these people. So the ancestors that I have a lot of history on are my Indian family, the Anglo part of my mom's family. I know a lot about those migrations and journeys and the fact that they settled up north in New England. And then with my dad's side of the family, the Black side of the family, like many Black people in America, that side of the family came here involuntarily as part of the transatlantic slave trade. And a lot of people, you can't really find, like, I don't know what African country my ancestors came from, just probably the coast. And so that was a little bit more of me just imagining what would it have been like for those women to raise their families on a plantation, to finally hear that their freedom was coming or not. And so that came sort of from just me wondering what those would have been like.
Yeah, wow. It's a lot to try to weave together, especially because you have such like disparate sides of your family to consider. That's
Yeah.
Cool. Well, something I really liked in your intro before you played the song was you talked about how like the very different roles that women have and hold, and sometimes hold concurrently. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but to me, like that's what really stood out, is like this idea that not only can women fill any role, but often have to fill many at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, and that is something that I have been made acutely aware of growing up. So my grandfather's Indian. He married a white woman who grew up in New England. She was born in Massachusetts. And India, well, at the time, and still to some extent, but at the time, definitely had a very traditional society, that was really in line with some gender roles and expectations. That my grandmother, although she was raised in similar gender roles and expectations here in the US, she has always been a very independent person in a way that might not have been as possible for a woman growing up in India. And so I know that she and my grandfather did have a lot of friction at times, and maybe even still, because of just their expectations for one another and who they each sort of imagined they'd end up being. And sometimes my grandmother, like with her memory going, she does go back to some older memories and she'll remind me of, or not remind me, I wasn't there, tell me about times when she was like, oh, I'm going to go get a PhD. And my grandfather was like, okay, this is not what I was expecting. How are we going to make it work? And they always made it work. So I was just thinking so much. And my grandparents, my mother's parents, they had 14 children. They had 4 biological children, 10 adopted children. And they have, yeah, they've just really exemplified the different roles that, the different ways that a family can look. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about these women as laborers, as scholars. And then on my dad's side, there has been different amounts of exploration or connection with our African heritage in all sorts of different ways. And so just seeing this name just keep coming up over and over, whether it was someone who was a lifelong stay-at-home mother and homemaker, or someone who got 2 PhDs, or someone who is part of like a radical activist group, like the name just is a common thread. And it was just amazing to think like all of these people, like this exponential explosion of people somehow ended up with me. Yeah. And I carry that name. And I just wonder, you know, who all those women were and who I will be.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing and kind of sharing your research into your family. I think this was kind of a great culmination of all that.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And do you have some other songs that are coming out? Is this just something that you wrote in quarantine, or are you working on a new project?
This was a quarantine sort of standalone song. I am working on a new album right now. I have my heart set on releasing it with like an in-person show. So I don't know if that's going to be this fall. I'm willing for it to be next year if necessary. Fingers crossed it could be this fall. But yeah, I'm working on something new. This song will not be part of it, but yeah, I'm really excited about the new music.
Awesome. Well, folks, you can go to Kimaya's website right down here and have a little patience, but keep an eye out for when that project is going to be released, hopefully in the next year or so. Thank you so much. Any final words you want to leave us with? I feel like that covers it.
Yeah, I think that covers it. Call your grandparents if they're still with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Get some of those personal family stories. My grandma is also into genealogy, and so I have a lot of the names and the dates and the countries and the trees, but not a whole lot of those personal stories. So those are super valuable.
They are. They're really special.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimaya, for
Thanks
joining
so
us.
much.
All right, we are going to stay over in Western Mass for the moment, and we are hopping over to Emma Ayres. Hey, Emma.
Hey, Abby. For anyone out there, huge round of applause for Kimaya and Rachel.
Yeah.
Woo woo! It's such an honor to follow in their footsteps.
And Emma, you were actually the one that suggested that we invite Kimaya to the show. So thanks to you for also helping to bring this together.
Hey, it's my pleasure. That's one of the great joys of being an independent musician, is all the people you meet along the way and the opportunity to continue to, I don't know, I guess build the world that you want to be part of just through the connections that you make in the journeys and sort of people that you meet. So it's wonderful to share this space with everyone.
Yeah, we're building more connections backstage, so it's all going on.
Alaska, next up.
Yes, yeah, we're all gonna go to Juneau. Is next. Awesome. Well, Emma, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you do your song. We'll come back and chat. Feel free to give any intro that you want, or you can save it all for afterwards.
Cool.
Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's so lovely to be with you. So I want you to imagine this scenario. There's a big city far away that has run out of clean water, and politicians in the city sort of run on a water shortage as a political platform. They promise big works, jobs, a better future, progress. And surveyors and engineers looked to a small valley, not far from where I live, where many waters met and where the soil was poor and the manufacturing struggled. And they saw a new destiny for the towns of this small valley. And basically it became a resource to be exploited. So essentially, this song is the perspective of one mother and a daughter who are told that through eminent domain law, they are going to have to leave their home and find a home maybe down the road. Without further ado, here we go. Clapboard house with empty halls where nothing is as it once was when the walls crumbled to the ground. Find me in the rubble like a drowned man. Sun's going down over crown of the hill. Wise man always scar the face of the lamb which winces under weight of his axe. Someone's paying to keep blood on his hands. Lift a lifetime of weight in the back of a truck. Oh, take me to another town where I'll try my luck. Well, I swear you're the road to my survival. Oh, take me to another town for my revival. Nobody lives here anymore. The government said, don't let the door hit you on your way out. It don't matter the price we pay, the fee don't keep the wolves at bay. Howling through this empty maze, don't give that dog a bone. Lift a lifetime of weight in the back of a truck. Oh, take me to another town where I'll try my luck. Well, I swear you're the road to my survival. Oh, take me to another town for my revival. My little valley, hearts grind like millstones when they tell us to go, when they tell us to go. My little valley, dig up the tombstones. Oh, even the bones have nowhere to go. Sometimes drowning people fight off the rescue. Don't reach for the rope when they know there's no hope. I'll be a red thread if you think you've forgotten how to find your way home now that everything's gone. How to find your way home now that everything's gone. How to find your way home.
Yeah. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
So before we start talking about this song in particular, can you tell folks a bit about the Water Project overall?
Yeah, so I've been working on a folk opera for a very long time now. It was supposed to premiere last summer at the Cove Festival, but alas, here we are. And so basically the Water Project folk opera is sort of a socio-political unpacking of the history of the flooding of the Quabbin. And sort of moving away from sort of this like over-romanticized story that sort of gets told in a mainstream capacity, and really taking a deep dive into the historical narrative through archives and conversations and interviews, and really trying to get to the root of the story. So it's basically telling that history, those histories through song, and specifically centering the perspective of a mother and her daughter as they sort of navigate this experience of displacement.
Mm-hmm. And so why did you pick this song in particular for tonight to showcase?
Well, I think this was the first song I wrote specifically from the perspective of the mother, and then it sort of segues into the voice of this like younger girl. And a lot of I think that I'm just like really passionate about finding the voice of this woman, and this mother figure specifically has been created through sort of a composite character practice of like taking all these like threads and snippets of like interviews and letters and poems and stories, and ultimately creating the story of this mother who essentially is like mourning the loss of her connection to home, and also simultaneously like comforting her daughter in the face of this displacement. And ultimately in this story, she does take a stand. We often don't hear stories of protest and rebellion and revolution in mainstream sort of historical narratives. And from conversations that I had with folks who actually like went through this displacement, some people did take a stand, and some people did protest the eminent domain law, and some people really put their foot down and I mean legitimately like tied themselves to their houses and like didn't want to leave. And so I think that this song is sort of an entry point into that that reality for this character.
So when did this all happen?
Well, it happened over a span of time. The surveying of the valleys started in the 1890s, and then the actual flooding took place in the late 30s into the 40s, and it took 7 years to actually sort of flood the entire valley and deconstruct it, because there were five towns there, and factories, and a whole prosperous economies, and so yeah.
And did you say that you spoke to people who were directly involved, or was it all kind of archival research and notes and things?
Yeah, so there are a couple of folks who are still around, which is
That's
truly,
amazing.
I guess, speaking to what Kimaya was saying, like, call your grandparents. I wish my grandparents were around. I wish I could have met my grandparents. But there's namely one woman. Her name's Zib, and she runs the Swift River Valley Historical Society, and that's based in New Salem, Massachusetts. And she is 97 years old, and so. She was able to sort of speak with me as she like brought me through all these rooms full of people's belongings that are sort of like haphazardly compiled in this historic house. And I was able to speak with her about sort of her experience and her husband's experience of this sort of this moment in history. And it was so powerful to speak with her, because I feel like sometimes in sort of mainstream historical narratives, like the emotion gets removed from the story, and like there's just like so much like there's so much like suffering and emotion like involved in that sort of experience. And I think it's also important to acknowledge, which is not acknowledged enough, is that like there are so many levels to displacement in that area. Like I'm telling the story of like white sort of folks who are displaced, but you have like the indigenous Nipmuc folks who were displaced by the white settlers, who were then displaced by sort of big city interests. So there's just many layers there.
Yeah, wow. And so your project is trying to bring those personal stories and that emotion back to the facts.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has some more impact. That's awesome. Well, and also kind of tying into some of Kimaya's themes, also that idea of this mother playing all these different roles. She's not just a mother in this, but also an activist, and working and trying to keep a family together during these times. It's like it's a lot of hats to be wearing at the same time.
Totally. Yeah. And this is like, I think something else that really strikes me is like, this is also in like the backdrop of the Great Depression. And it's really something that's really fascinating to me about this sort of instance in local history is like the ways in which like this sort of concept of like human versus nature is like sort of leveraged by political campaigns to sort of show like what any given individual is capable of. And it's so corrupt. There's a line by this amazing Indian activist and writer, Arundhati Roy, that says, "Dams are temples to American nationalism." And there's something about that really struck me in reading her writing about sort of the metaphor of a dam, because it's literally like stopping the natural flow of water. It's like altering the like geographic surface of the earth, and
usually for commerce reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this situation, what people don't know is that they were surveying 3 different areas, and 2 of the areas that they were surveying wouldn't require this like great relocation, but the fellow who was there was somebody trying to run for re-election for governor, James Michael Curley in Boston, and he sort of decided to, create the quabbin where it is because it was going to require the creation of more jobs. And when you think about that within the context of the Great Depression, it's like, it's just these sort of stories repeat themselves. And so I don't know, I'm just excited to like try to like tease out the voices of like the women who are experiencing these stories that often get like continually retold by man's voices. Yeah. So. And
Yeah,
I also want. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you some specifics about the project. Are you partnering with anyone else? Is this going to come out in a video format? Are you waiting till live? What's the status?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Well, I want to first acknowledge that like this project was first of all made possible by the Iguana Fund through Club Passim. So shout out to the Iguana Fund and all those who are involved in making that possible, and all the artists who are creating in this moment right now based on that funding. That sort of funding source really helped jumpstart this project. So I am actually going to be going into the studio this summer to record all of the songs and
awesome.
Hopefully release it as like an album, and then see where the world goes, and hopefully stage it at some point is my dream. So
yeah. Well, folks can go to emmaayresmusic.com, and there's a tab there on the site for some more info on the water project. Stay tuned there, I'm sure, for updates. I also hope, even before like a stage production of this or something, I hope that you can put together like a booklet or something with some of these archival pieces, because I would love to like listen to the album, but also like read letters or I don't know, protest posters or something. Like I'd love to see stuff like that.
Oh, Abby, I'm gonna send you. There's an amazing archive through UMass that has like hours and hours and hours of oral history interviews, and you'll just hear like old timers be like, and the dances and the farms and the. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you.
Any final words on the impact that you think this particular story has?
I mean, I just think that like getting inside of something sonically, like there's like the vehicle of a song has so much power to communicate a story, and I'm just really like excited to continue to explore these voices and bring them to life through song. And maybe some of these songs will reach like the ears of some surviving folks who sort of experience this. And I don't know, I think there's a lot of catharsis in that. But I also want to say, for folks who are tuning in, thank you so much for supporting just like independent music making during this time, and for supporting this live stream. Again, like I am here and we are all here because you are here, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Emma, for being a part of this. I can't wait to see what the final product is going to be for the water project.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much.
See ya. Oh, that's lovely. As Emma mentioned, thank you, folks, so much for being here and for supporting this stream. You're supporting us by being here and by saying your lovely comments. If you would also like to financially support us, you can go to passim.org/stream, and we're suggesting a $15 donation for the show tonight, and that is going to be going towards the artists to help them continue making a living as artists during these difficult non-gig times, and also to help Passim keep the doors open, or reopen the doors when it is once again safe to. So thank you for tuning in. We have one final performer for you tonight. We have been kind of staying in the Northeast, but now we're going to hop all the way to Alaska, and bringing us some stories of women during the Klondike Gold Rush in Alaska and the Yukon. Here is Annie Bartholomew.
In 98, we were Yukon bound, 30 mile, she run around. Dawson City, no work to be found. Only trouble in gold by the pound. I'm gonna lie, Gonna cheat, gonna steal, I'm gonna fake all the things I can't feel. And I wanna meet my savior, honey, I will kneel and work this room till I get a better deal. And I'll work this room till I get a better deal. White chapel woman, this whole girl, I'll be your sweetheart if you give me a whirl. But ain't no man gonna buy off me, for life is a wife to misery. For life is a wife to misery. From the moment I did decide, I was bathed, I was baptized. Silk and lace be my disguise. I will suffer, I will rise. I'm gonna run, gonna float, gonna fly. I'm gonna swallow all the tears that I cry. And if you see me on the by and by, don't you call me by my name, lest I'll die. Don't you call me by my name, lest I'll die. Whitechapel woman, this hall girl, I'll be your sweetheart if you give me a whirl. But ain't no man gonna buy off me, for life is a wife to misery. For life is a wife to misery. Welcome to the demi-monde, bienvenue à la demi-monde. Welcome to the demi-monde, bienvenue à la demi-monde.
And that's Annie Bartholomew coming to us from Alaska, from Juneau, I believe. Is that right, Annie? You're muted for us.
Yep, I'm coming live from Juneau. It's
Awesome.
in southeast Alaska over here, and then this would be like the Yukon territory.
I love how like every state has like a different hand that you can do to like show people what's going on for those of us who don't know what's happening over in your state.
Yeah, Alaska is pretty big, and it's how we introduce ourselves to each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us from Alaska through the magic of the internet. I want to talk about the song in particular, but before that, so you're born and raised in Alaska, lived most of your life there, your whole life there, and
Yeah.
so are these stories of the gold rush in particular, and then like these women's stories during the gold rush, are these things that you grew up learning in school, or are these some things that you had to seek out later?
Well, we were kind of fed the PG version of the Klondike Gold Rush history in elementary school, and our class trip was actually to Skagway and then Whitehorse, you can drive to from Juneau.
Wow.
And it was like the colonizer perspective, I would say, very white, male-oriented, and a lot of the stories of women couldn't be talked about, because how do you talk about entertainment and sex work to fifth graders? It just doesn't work. So I learned about this history much later. As an adult, in Skagway, it's one of the cruise ship hubs in Alaska, And there's this really amazing venue called the Red Onion Saloon. It's a historic brothel museum. And the women who work there dressed up as 19th century working gals. And they give tours of the town, and they actually have the upstairs that's been preserved, and they have all the wallpapers still on there, and talk about the day-to-day lives of women, the reasons they might have turned to sex work, and then just the realities of that time where the cost of living was much higher than a woman could afford doing honest work. So, yeah, that was just the reality. A lot of women came there as entrepreneurs or to start businesses, but found themselves with impossible choices. And the book that I would recommend is Leo Morgan's Good Time Girls, the Alaska and Yukon Gold Rush. And she profiles a lot of different women, and the parts are very salacious, but the underlying thing for me is just the incredible resilience and strength that these women have and all that they overcome. I think we think about survival stories a lot in Alaska, and you know, people are overcoming the elements or animals, but I mean, just surviving, just existing during that time was really huge.
So are these? I have to order that book, by the way. I've got Radium Girls, gonna get the Good Time Girls. Were these women who like were raised in the area, or were they wives of miners, or were they just single entrepreneurs that were striking out and hoping to find gold for themselves? Like how did these women get into these positions?
Well, there are all kinds of circumstances. It was like 1898 was kind of the big year, and it was economic depression during the time. So when gold was discovered in Alaska and Canada, all the papers are writing about it. There were some women who went there to find husbands. There were some women who came with their husbands or family members who may have been lost in avalanches or out on the trail. There were just some women who were running away or didn't want to get married or didn't want to settle for, you know, what women were expected to do during that time. Kind of your best case scenario would be being married to a nice man and doing needlework in a parlor somewhere. So they went north. There's really incredible stories. During my research, I'm learning to play banjo because there was a gal named Maud Parrish who a judge wouldn't let her get divorced, so she ran away with her banjo to Alaska, and her plan was to play banjo in one of the dance halls, but she learned she could make more money doing as a dance hall gal, which is where you get paid per dance, and then you make commission on all the drinks that you sell. And during that time, it was like a lot of like fiddle music and polkas, but they just said these women would dance all night. And sometimes your work as like a dance hall gal was like a front or a way to solicit new clients or boyfriends or things like that. But there were all kinds of tiers to the demi-monde, which is what they called kind of the underworld, whether you were an actress or singer or dance hall gal or private kind of contractor in the streets. Yeah, the stories just are incredible and unbelievable, but true.
Yeah, I love that idea of just running away with your banjo and like you're just gonna find a way to make it work.
Yeah, she did, and she only stayed for one season. She got enough capital to take the next steamer out of town and live her life.
Yeah, that reminds me of like cabaret stories where like performance and sex work are all really tied up together, and that idea that like there is this like underbelly to the music world too. That's fascinating. So what got you started on this path of looking into these women's stories?
It was a few different things. One summer I played a concert in Skagway and did that brothel tour at the Red Onion Saloon. And then I also played a show on the Canadian side in Dawson City, which is kind of like the end of the Yukon Gold Rush. And that was the big boomtown there, which is just an incredible spot if you guys ever get the chance to go there. And in all places, I think a lot of these historic towns still have this Wild West thing going on, and just became curious, then really haunted by the stories and the artifacts that I saw. I got to do a residency in Whitehorse and then got to go to Dawson City and look at all of their like cold storage, the possessions that women had. Like they considered Dawson City Paris of the North, and so they had like the latest fashions of Paris, and yeah, just so crazy that there was so much wealth, but also so many folks suffering. It's been very well researched, so I've had an easier time combing through these narratives and historical documents.
Yeah, but you've put together like a whole project of these, right? So you played for us the Whitechapel Woman tonight. Do you have an album coming out, or how are you gonna present your songs?
Yeah, so I've been working on this song cycle for the last few years. It's been super interesting to research, and I'm planning to release an album next summer. Recording plans kind of got halted with COVID-19, but this fall I'm headed to Gustavus, which is a tiny town 50 miles from Alaska where my producer lives, and we're going to record it, and then I'm also adapting it into a stage show with a new organization called Theater Alaska. So right now I'm in the throes of writing this play so that I can bring the story and the music to wider audiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. And folks, you can go to Annie's website. It's Annie B Alaska, and she's got a page on there about this project, and I'm so excited. I hope I get to see like the staging of it, because that just sounds super cool to me. And what was the name of that book you recommended? The Good Time Girls of Alaska?
Yeah, it's The Good Time Girls of Alaska by Lael Morgan, who really incredibly researched the book. It seems like every time I think I'm going down a rabbit hole, she's already done it, and she did it in the 80s and 90s when they didn't have the internet. So we're so lucky to be in a time where you can research things so easily.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for bringing us these stories. These are things, I guess like you said, maybe we couldn't learn in school, but it's fascinating to hear them.
Thanks so much for having me, and Rachel for helping me make my Club Passim debut.
Yeah. Well, I hope we can have you back, maybe when the album's out next year, or we can do a stream with you or something, because these are fascinating.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Well, folks, that is our show for tonight. So again, I want to thank all of our performers tonight. Rachel Sumner, Kimaya Diggs, Emma Ayres, and Annie Bartholomew. Be sure to check out their music. They have everything that you heard tonight were original tunes, and most of them pretty new tunes as well. Emma and Annie are both doing kind of bigger pieces around this, stage things, folk opera things, and they've done their research. So please do check them out as those things come out. Also, if you can help support the stream tonight, you can go to passim.org/stream. We're suggesting a $15 donation for tonight, and that's going to support both the artists and Passim so that we can keep bringing you shows like this, and so that we can open our physical doors once it is again safe to do so. I have been Abby, and I have been very happy to host this night for you folks. Happy Women's History Month. I highly encourage you to pick up the couple books that we talked about, because they're really good to dig into. Super diverse stories that you get to hear, and a lot of it hits home, even though many of the stories we talked about were 100 years ago. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.